Yo, what's going on everyone? Guiding Light here, and in this video I want to talk to you guys about the new Descendant Luna. We're going to go over all of the new abilities, some gameplay, and actually one of the builds with one of the new Transcendent mods as well. Now, as of right now, there's two different Transcendent mods you can get for Luna. One is from the Dead Bride, and one is from the brand new boss fight. So let's very quickly take a look at these two Transcendents. So we have the first one here, which comes from the Dead Bride boss. It says granting a buff to allies increases Luna's movement speed and skill range. So this is one of the Transcendents which you can get. If you guys didn't know how Luna works, her abilities will actually buff up other characters, allowing them to do more damage and also get their abilities back faster. So basically, anytime that you do this, you're going to get increased movement speed, and I'll showcase how that works here in this video. Now, there actually is another Transcendent mod called Noise Surge, which it says when using a skill that deals damage to nearby enemies, instead of buffing allies, it actually will grant a stackable buff, allowing you to basically do DPS instead of buffing your teammates. You're going to be able to do DPS with your weapon instead. Now, this is the Transcendent mod I'm really after. However, it only drops from the new boss. You'd have to farm it multiple times in order to get this drop. So as of right now, I have not gotten it as a drop, and I'm only going to be making a build around the Nimble Footsteps so you guys can get a quick overview. I can give you guys a review and figure out whether this class is really worth either the time grinding or the caliber to actually go ahead and grab this. So let's get into some gameplay after we go over how each ability works. Now, one of the first things I can say about this character is that it's unlike any other character I've used in any other shooter. And the reason for this is because anytime you activate one of her abilities, it will actually bring up this note pattern. And what you have to do is actually sync up your shot to these notes which pop up in order to create stacks. And these stacks will give you different abilities. So the first ability, as you can see here, is it's actually going to do this effect where it does increase the skill power. You can stack this up to 25 times and it will also recover bullets for you as well. Now there's other abilities which you can activate after this one is activated. You can activate Exciting Act. What this is going to do is it's going to create a radius around you where anyone who's in it will get a skill power modifier. So anytime they activate a skill, their skill is going to do extra damage and it can stack multiple times and last for quite a while. The more notes you hit in order and in a row, the longer this will operate for. And you can roam around the map, activating it on different teammates or in different areas. There's also another perk called Relaxing Act. It's very similar to the first one where it creates that radius. However, with this one, what it will do is it will help your teammates to recover their abilities much, much quicker. So if you pop them in the right order, you can make your teammates get their abilities back, and then you can give them extra damage as well. Now, after that, there's going to be another perk called Cheerful Act. This gives you a cooldown, and it also gives you what is called an inspiration gauge. As you charge up this inspiration gauge by hitting notes in the right order, it's going to allow you to activate what's called an enhanced skill. Once you activate the enhanced skill, it will give you guys a 100% cooldown, so you're going to automatically get all of your abilities back, and so will all of your teammates as well. Now, I find that this ability is extremely hard to stack up, and it does take quite a bit of time, so it's not something that you can pop quickly. Now, the next thing is the Nimble Footsteps. This is the Transcendent. Anytime that I buff up any enemies or any teammates, what it's going to do is it's actually going to give me extra movement speed, and it can stack quite a few times, actually up to 20 times. Now, at first, I didn't think this was going to be too effective. However, I noticed it was actually kind of nice because whenever you're done activating all of your abilities, you're going to get a stack of up to 20 times where you can move faster. And what it does is it makes it so you can move so fast, you can run around the map clearing up ads while you wait for your abilities to come back. And you can sort of start up a pretty nice flow where you buff up your teammates, clear up ads, and then just go right back up to buffing up your teammates about 10 seconds later. So it's really not too bad of a class, but it's definitely going to take the right playstyle to use it and some getting used to as well. So let's jump into some gameplay. So what you can do here is you can actually pop your first ability. It will not allow you to pop the other abilities without first popping the original ability. Now, the one downside to this class that I find is sometimes syncing up the notes. Now, at first, it takes a little bit of getting used to where you have to sync up the notes, and it actually can be fun. But the one thing I noticed is that in order to activate any of the secondary skills, you actually have to time the skill activation up with the note as well. That was one thing I didn't really like. I do like her abilities. I like that you have to time up the notes, but the fact that you have to time the notes up with the skill activation can sometimes be a bit impossible to try to time up. What you're trying to dodge the enemies, aim your weapon, and now you have to time up sync up your shots and your abilities. It can get a little hectic, but I think over time it'll be something that I did get used to. It was just something at first that I didn't necessarily like. Now, it is really cool that you can make her ability last for so long, and you don't really have to aim directly at the enemies. It's very similar to Sharon, where so long as they're on your screen or within this hitbox, the shots will automatically connect. Now, I definitely really enjoyed the difference in playstyle. There's no other character like this in any other game that I've ever seen have abilities quite like this, where you have to sync it up to a music track, and I actually definitely enjoyed getting used to it. Now, if we really get into the effectiveness of it, overall, it has a pretty extreme range where you can definitely buff up your teammates from extremely far away. And what that buff will do is give them extra skill power and extra skill regeneration. Now, overall, is this really necessary? Is the question, because in my opinion, the characters are already so strong that any buffs that you're going to give them are seemingly unnecessary. Now, there's one thing that can be said about when running in boss fights with this character. If you're going to buff up like a ultimate Lepic or something like that, I could definitely see that being useful, because if an ultimate Lepic pops his ability, you're able to give him 100% regeneration, and then they can pop it again. That's definitely going to have some pretty good use. But when just going through missions and clearing out hordes and hordes of enemies, or even just going through a normal strike operation, are all these buffs and debuffs really necessary? In my opinion, I don't really think that they are. Now, it's not to take away from the class at all, and I definitely find it extremely enjoyable. I'll definitely get into more of how the movement and things like that work as well, and why I enjoyed that. However, overall, I don't think this is going to be the character that a lot of people want to go out of their way and farm for. The reason why I say that is because you have to put in a lot of work for this character, and then you sort of have to rely on your teammates to be good in order to see any major effects. It does if you're running around buffing up your teammates' abilities and skill regen, but then they're choosing not to use their skills or things like that, you can notice how that would actually be extremely ineffective. Also, when going into boss fights and things like that, or those void intercept battles, one thing I noticed when I was trying to buff up my teammates, try to get them to do extra damage to get their skills back faster, it actually was seemingly very hard, because a lot of your teammates, they're going to be scattered around the map. They don't really work together a lot. And so I found myself just kind of running around the map during void intercept battles trying to buff up teammates, but they were too scattered around to really see a positive effect. Now, if I was playing with friends and we all planned out ahead of time that I was going to buff them up, and they knew that I was going to give them their skills back, I could see this being an extremely effective class, especially when bossing. Now, there are actually a few really good things about this class, but one more downside that I did have is I noticed that if I tried to have a nice AoE damage, or if I tried to clear out enemies on my own, it was actually almost extremely ineffective when using abilities. Now, this is to me is a big downside, that you actually have to be around teammates in order to really see a positive effect. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't running solo, so the difficulty was scaled up to 4 players, but in no other time with any other Descendant or weapon have I ever felt like I needed to be around teammates at all time. Now, it's not that I'm going to go down, but it's just that I'm extremely ineffective. My abilities don't really do much, and you notice that the shots, they do around like 40k per hit, and it's just not enough to clear out big hordes of enemies, which to me was a big downside, as I do play solo a majority of the time. Now, that being said, that Transcendent mod, which switches your damage from buffing teammates to actually buffing up your damage, now that could make this a lot different. But unfortunately, they've made it so hard to get that Transcendent mod that the average player will not be able to unlock that anytime soon. Now, one thing I can say that's pretty good about this character is that I enjoyed playing it, and it was extremely fun. It's a lot different than any other character, which in my opinion are all good things. It's nice to see that this game has unique things in it, which we've genuinely never seen before, and so that was cool to see. Also, I found that one really good combo is that you can activate all these abilities and that they don't really run out anytime soon, which makes for some pretty interesting builds. You can keep that combo going very long. Then when you come out of the combo, you're actually going to get that stack of movement abilities. And to be fair, that actually did make for some pretty good ad clear, because you stack that movement ability up enough and you have a pretty solid weapon on. Once you come out of your abilities, you can clear out the whole horde yourself and then just go back to buffing up your teammates. So when you have the additional movement speed, it actually does make for decent ad clear, but there's just no AoE damage. Unfortunately, I understand there's not really supposed to be, but it would be cool to see at least some AoE damage. Another really cool thing about this class is when you finally can build up that perfect stack. You'll notice here I'll pop this ability to give my teammates extra skill damage. From there, I build up a really big note streak, and you'll see the bar at the bottom begin to charge up. Once that's fully charged, you get to activate the enhanced skill. And what those enhanced skill does is you can see it'll increase the radius. It will automatically give all of my teammates all of their skills back automatically, and then it will buff their damage as well. So it's extremely good if you can time it right, and like before the boss would go into a stagger phase or something like that, and you time this right, it could be extremely good like I did here. However, it's very, very rare to get this streak at the perfect time to really see it utilized in a boss phase. However, this is where this I think this effect would become the most useful. And you can see here, I'll activate the enhanced skill. She goes into a little bit of a dance and to see that you are actually in the enhanced version of the skill. And you can do that with all of the different skills. They all have an enhanced version, which will then buff them up considerably more. So it is a really cool class, really awesome to use. And I think once fully built, she's going to have some really interesting uses in those Void Intercept battles. I'm sure you're going to see people uploading videos taking down bosses because of her. And I think in the future, with more missions that come out, or if there ever is a really, really tough boss or mission that ends up debuffing us, and then we need Luna to sort of buff us back up to normal, I think she's going to be pretty cool in the future. As of right now, I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to farm her out. I don't really think she's for most people. And until you get that Transcendent mod, which is one of the hardest items to acquire in the game, I don't think you're going to see much solo use effects for her. It's always going to be team based buffing. So now that you have all that info, you'll know whether you really want to grind her out or not.